Hi, I'm Jay Soul, Morgan Stanley's branded apparel and footwear analyst, and I'm very pleased to be joined by Pam Goodfellow, Consumer Insights Director for Prosper Insights and Analytics, one of the country's leading market research firms. Now today we're here to talk about our September retail sales outlook. And the key takeaway is the numbers look pretty good for retail, and which is probably a pretty good read-through for stocks. Now we're going to talk about the overall retail spending outlook, we're going to dive into the categories a little bit, and then we're going to talk about our preliminary holiday forecast, or I should say your preliminary holiday forecast, which I'm sure people will be very interested in. So let's start off with the overall forecast. What's your view for September?
Well, September's looking really good. Year over year, our outlook for consumer spending is up about 5%, which is even with what we saw in August for growth. So, that's something great to see headed in the holiday season. As far as staples versus discretionary categories are concerned, we're seeing more movement in discretionary, more positive movement in discretionary. Staples is pretty flat, being driven by a flat growth in grocery.
All right, so let's talk about the discretionary categories, particularly soft lines versus hard lines. It looks like the data that both look pretty good. What's your view on soft lines versus hard lines?
That's right. Both soft lines and hard lines look pretty good. Hard lines is up about 7.5%, and soft lines are up about 8.5%. In the soft lines, though, we're looking at good improvement in dining out, men's apparel, and of course toys. It's a pivotal time of year for toys, but Hardlines has some great categories as well. We're seeing the home improvement categories, so home improvement tools, lawn and garden, but also sporting goods look pretty good as well this month.
Interesting. And what I noticed looking at the data is there weren't really any weak standout categories. Like children's apparel's had a couple weak months there, but this month seems to have rebounded. Is that right? Basically strength across the board.
Basically strength across the board. We didn't see any drops in year over year change. So all categories look pretty good this month.
All right, so let's get to the holiday forecast, because Prosper always does a preliminary outlook in its September survey before it gets to its official outlook in October. But right now, the preliminary outlook for September looks pretty favorable on a directional basis.
On a directional basis, yes. It's still kind of early to ask consumers how much they're going to spend on the holiday season, but we try and get some sort of gauge of this, and we simply ask consumers whether they plan to spend more, the same, or less on gifts this year. And we tabulate a score based on all of that, and our score actually increased about 25% versus last year. That doesn't mean that we're forecasting consumers to spend 25% more, but that's a really great number to see headed into the holiday season.
Interesting. And then I think that you pointed out when we were speaking earlier is that there's a pretty decent correlation between the September preliminary view and then your official October forecast, right? So obviously on a directional basis would be pretty positive.
Right. We're looking at pretty positive. In past years, 2013, we had a small bobble in our score, which foreshadowed about a month ahead of time the 3% drop in planned spending. So yeah, as kind of a directional bellwether, our holiday outlook has been pretty accurate.
Great. So I think for the stock market, I think the key message is that it's good out there. Obviously, growth is strong, but it's not accelerating or decelerating. So we still see an environment where the best executors will continue to perform, and it's going to be an environment that can be strong, good but not great. So why don't we stop there? In part 2 of our video, we talked about what's going to happen in September. In part 2, we're going to talk about why the consumer is acting the way it is. So again, this is Pam Goodfellow, Consumer Insights Director of Prosper Insights and Analytics. I'm Jay Soul, Morgan Stanley's branded apparel and footwear analyst. Thanks so much for your time.